So you start with disassembling this PSU that I found. A quick tip is actually to use your hammer a little bit on the side and they will open up rather quickly. I'm removing the contacts because that's not the right one from my area. Soldering up the relays to the board. The design is pretty simple, just a matter of switching the poles on the motor and then disabling the motor whenever we are in the endpoints. And I'm driving it with a BC547 transistor, if I'm not mistaken.
So here we now have it together. The LEDs will represent the motors, what direction they are in, because they are turned the other way around. So basically this knob here will represent if we get power into this board or not, because I will be hooking this up to the TV on the USB. So if we get power in, the relay will put and the green will light up. And here we have the switch. This is the open switch, as you see, it turns down and turns up. What if we have it like that and we remove the TV, and you can see that that one turns on again until the TV is back up and it will light up. So this is how I will be doing it. So let's turn this the other way around and see how it looks. What we have here is rather simple because we have two relays and we have one transistor and one resistor. And that's because I'm going to drive this with 5 volt and the relay and everything here is 12 volt. So that's why I'm using this 5 volt resistor. I will be using the power from the USB because when I turn on the TV, the USB will come on as well.
Adding some cables to the PSU, I'm going to put it back into the case again. Adding an extension cord as well, of course. It's all about reusing what you have, so that's what I'm doing. And as you can see, I added some hot glue to the components as well, because they were fairly loose, and some tape around it. Fixing up the cables for the frame itself, and I'm sleeving all the cables, of course. Makes it a little bit nicer and easier to work with. Heat sinks on the end. Attaching it to the motor on around, and then I went back to the board and soldering all up to the PCB itself that I did create earlier. Using the USB cable, stripping it off.
So basically I took this USB cable here and hooked up the plus and minus to this board as well. I have connected roughly 2 kilo ohms of resistors on both ends just to make sure that if something happens they aren't really attached. The ground level I did measure it up between this board and this one board, and since they are DC-DC they are floating, so that's not a big issue. But doing this with the resistors helps me protect it somewhat more. So actually this do work now. I don't want to show you this yet. So next step is actually to find some enclosure for this part here and paint everything up. So let's go.
Just normal black paint added, nothing fancy at all. Try to not paint over the contacts on the endpoints and the motor and everything. Other than that, you're fine.
And here we have a box. This one should fit rather nicely, I hope.
I'm a big fan of hot glue, and it works fairly well as long as you use it in the correct area. It doesn't stick to glancey surfaces, but it do work to keep some cables just slightly tied together at least. And that's the main purpose here. Now it's time to the front of this whole structure. Don't forget to look at part 1. In part 1 I start with the basics for all this project. Otherwise it might be a little bit tricky to understand what's going on here. It's all about cutting it out. It's nothing fancy whatsoever. When you're using a board like this, it's important that you be careful in the edges, because they are pretty thin and it's easy to break them off. Some sanding and then test fit. Had to cut something out to just make it fit, and that's fine. And I'm gluing it back together again. Clamps on the edges and make sure that all this structure is straight, and then just nailing it together quickly, because I don't have time to wait for it to dry and I don't have clamps enough. Making sure I sand it properly so the edges and everything are quite smooth. When it comes to this board, it's a rather cheap board, but still it works great to do projects like this, but you don't have a perfect surface on it. So if you're out for that, you should choose something different. Normal wall paint, white, same as I have on the roof itself inside. And I'm painting the inside as well, as you can see, and that's because if you look at it you will be able to see inside it from underneath, and I didn't want to be able to see plain wood. I wanted everything to be white. One layer on the inside is more than enough, and on the outside I actually painted 3 layers to make it actually perfectly clear. It's a normal water-based paint, so and it's rather thick as well, so it will cover the holes for nails, for instance. And when that's done, it's actually time to mount it, because all the parts are ready for that. And here you see the ceiling of my room where they're going to sit. So a lot of measuring first. And then it's just a matter of drawing rather large screws, and I have a wooden ceiling, so there is no problem and it will never fall down. So hooking up the electronics, end point and everything. Making sure it actually fits now. Back with the TV again, attaching it for first test. It actually seemed to work. Making sure that the end points work as they should as well. Now it's time to tie up all the boxes and everything here. On the back side it's just about hooking up the USB and the power supply. Then we are ready for the final test. Still works. You can see it's a simple line that does it, but that line is rated for like 250 kilos. It should be good enough. And the cable for this is not fully set up yet. And of course, no channels on TV for now, but that will be fixed later on. So let's turn it off again, and it turns off, and the TV goes back up again.
And there it is, hidden in the roof. Thank you guys for watching. Give me a big thumbs up if you liked it. If you haven't subscribed already, don't forget to do that. And I'll see you next time. For once, the project is finished. Bye. Thank you guys for watching another one of my exciting episodes. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Meanwhile, also check out my other exciting videos. And if you want to support my work, you can find links to both Patreon and PayPal below. By becoming a Patreon supporter, you help me a lot and you also gain access to some extra material.